Welcome to Nevertheless Podcast with Bidemi Mark-Mordi, a show dedicated to organic leaders and leaderpreneurs. Today, you would learn how to discover your essence and live more powerfully.
Hi, welcome to the Nevertheless Show, a show for organic leaders and leaderpreneurs. My name is Bidemi Mark-Mordi, and we've been in the series Curating a Winning Year. We're looking at the 5 buckets that you must fill for yourself to ensure that you have a year that is winning, a winning year and a winsome year. We started with the bucket of knowledge, and then from there we went to the bucket of skills. Today we want to look at 2 buckets combined, the bucket of your network and the bucket of your resources. Your network is who you know, and your resources obviously is what you have. Now, if we want to, within the context of today's episode, I need to define for us what a network is. A network refers to a web of relationships. That is a web of relationships and connections amongst individuals or groups who share common interests. Let me break it down. What this means is that what you call your network must be people. There must be relationships that you have with other individuals that share common interests, goals, and industries for you. So whatever it is that you do, if you want to win in 2025, here's the point that today's episode is about. You need to ask yourself, who do I know? Who are the people who do the things that I do that know me enough to like me and to trust me? Who is it that if I had to expand what I'm doing so that I will win, I can call on and they would gladly come to, not even so much to do anything for you for free, but you have a pool of a network of people that you can pull from. Networking or your network of people would involve building and maintaining mutually beneficial relationships where you exchange knowledge, you exchange opportunities and resources for the growth of your business or your career or your ministry. Yes? So every one of us need to sit down and say, do I have a network? I have found in my life that anytime my network expands, it is someone in my network that opens the door for me. Last year, I met someone who has now introduced me to another person. And that's how the network begins to expand and open up. So you need to know who you know. Who do you know? You see, this question is critical and this bucket is important because a lot of us think we know people until the day we need them. And then you find you don't know them. And that will usually be because you ascribe to a relationship more than it is. You ascribe maybe some value and some worth to a relationship more than it is in the real actual sense of it. I don't know if I'm making sense, but what I'm trying to say is someone becomes part of your network because you can lean on them. Sometimes we find ourselves in relationships where we assume that we can lean on people. And then when the day comes that we need them, we find that we are not able to lean on them. And this has nothing to do with them most of the time. It would have to do with you because the question would be, have you nurtured these relationships? Have you built anything into this relationship? Have you deposited in that bank of network? Because if you want to now withdraw, people want to know how you have been beneficial to them. Have they been able to lean on you? So you can't say someone or a group of people are your network and they are never able to lean on you. You do not work on those relationships. You don't talk to them. You don't speak to them. You don't share anything. You don't contribute anything. So to be able to ascertain whether your bucket of network works or your network bucket works, you want to make sure that you clearly define who is in your network and what they mean to you. Now, what is resource? The definition for resource is that a resource is any asset, material, or tool that you can deploy to achieve your goal or complete your task. That's a resource. So when we're talking about resource today, we're not talking only about money, and we're not talking only about people. We're talking about anything that is an asset, anything that is a tool. Every time prior to this time, if I had to podcast, I'd had to, to record my podcast, I'd had to hire the cameras and the lights and all of that. But after a while, we invested in that for ourselves. So whether I want to record my podcast at home, want to record it at work, or sometimes on the go, I have the resources, I have the gadgets to be able to do that. So your resource is any asset, material, or tool that you can deploy in achieving your goal and completing your task. That's a resource. So now, sometimes resources would include time, money, your skills, technology, human capital. And that's not taking away from what it is that I have talked about earlier on. Neither is what I've talked about earlier on, taking away from this other list. But I just wanted you to know that when you think about resources, you think beyond just what you can, money. You think, because some resources are even your mentor. For me, mental agility is a resource. Mental agility is a resource. How present are you when it comes to executing the things that you've been called to execute? Like I said, this episode, we're looking at what we have and who we know. The question is, who do you know? The kind of year that you have identified or defined for yourself that would represent a winning year. Who are the kinds of people you need to know? Do you know them? If you do not know them, where can they be found? Because if you can determine where they can be found, then you may need to go and register in these professional bodies or networks and stuff like that, and then begin to build relationships from the ground up. But if you already belonged in those places, and the issue is that you have not built or nurtured those relationships, it's still okay. So at least now you know what it is that you are dealing with. And then you can go and begin to build them. You can begin to nurture. You can begin to deposit in those bank accounts so that when you have a need to withdraw, you will find something to withdraw. Who do you know? To understand who you know, you need to know who you need. A lot of us don't know who we need. And if you don't know who you need, how are you going to know who you know? When I think about who do you know, your network, it's on different levels. There are people ahead of you who can become your mentors and your coaches. Do you know them? There are people that are the same level, that are your peers, for whom you can lean on and you can exchange ideas and do idea swapping with. Do you know them? If you may know them by reputation and by their names, can you put a face to them? Have you been in the same room with them before? In the rooms where you were with them, did you make the effort to introduce yourself? If you had to reach them today, do you have a telephone number for them? Networks don't happen in a vacuum. They take effort. They take building. There's the African proverb that says that if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with others. That's what networking is for you. Your network is for you. A group of people who can empower you so that you go further than you could have gone by yourself. Your resource will take a building. Whether it is you need 5 cameras, you already have 3. Then in dealing with resource, you may begin to say, okay, I'm going to save up and buy an additional camera this year. Because you cannot win if you don't have the right tools. So make sure you decide within yourself and say, my bucket for my network bucket will be filled with the right people. It's not enough to have people, you have to have the right people. And you want to tell yourself that your network, your bucket of resources will have the right tools. It's your magic box. So that whatever it is you need to achieve so that you win in 2025, you can find them inside of those boxes or inside of those buckets. When I come back in this episode, I'll be sharing with you how to enhance both your network and your resource buckets to ensure that you arrive where you need to go. Please don't go away. It's still the Nevertheless Show. And this is Bidemi Mark-Mordi. God bless you.
Are you seeking to clarify your purpose and profit from it? Then get into Purpose University this year. It's a 10-week e-course for people of faith who seek to clarify their purpose and profit from it. The DNA of Purpose has been put together to help you understand what purpose is about and also help you discover what your journey of purpose looks like. Register today at yourpurposeu.org, where Bidemi Mark-Mordi would hold your hands so you can discover your purpose and live a more powerful life. In a world filled with many fears and discouragement, life often becomes a burden. For those who know the way, life is just simple. Do not worry, you're not alone on this life's journey, as Bidemi Mark-Mordi shares powerful insights and principles from her everyday work and life experiences in her book, Nevertheless. Nevertheless is a book designed to encourage and equip you to face life with courage, hope, and determination. Get a copy of Nevertheless and other books written by Bidemi Mark-Mordi, like The Wisdom of the Seed, Honor, The Theology of Work, and so much more from a bookstore nearby, or call 080-905-63555, or send an email to bidemi@bidemimarkmordi.com to place your order. I guarantee you will make it. Nevertheless.
Welcome back. It's still the Nevertheless show, and this is Bidemi Mark-Mordi. We're in the series Curating a Winning Year. And before we went on the break, we're looking at your resource and your network bucket. We were saying that you need to fill them, make the right decisions so that those buckets remain full, so that you can have a winning year. Before we went on the break, I did define for you what a resource is and what a network is. And I said that it takes intentionality to be able to build these two buckets and make sure that they are filled with the right resources. In this segment of this episode, I'd like to share with you strategies in ensuring that your buckets are full, both your network buckets and your resource buckets, that they are full with the right tools, so that when you need, as you're curating your year, you are able to grow and arrive where you need to go. So, what are the things that you need to do? The first one is leverage your network by building relationships. Don't just go to your professional meetings or your industry meetings and sit down. It's what I like to do. I honestly find it difficult to just talk to I don't find it difficult to talk to strangers. I just have this thing in my head that they're not paying attention. And truly, it's not because experience sometimes make you feel that way, because you sit beside someone and you have all kinds of conversations, and the next time you meet with them, they do not even remember that they met you before. So it makes me weary of those kinds of environments. But what I've done is when I do manage to go to those events, I hone in on the 1-2 people and I just focus on them for that time. I give them all of my attention. I make the effort. I remember years ago, I went for some networking event, and in that event, we had over 30 or 40 women in the room. And I didn't share what I brought with everyone, but there were, say, about 10 or 12 of them that I put my resource in their hands and took their cards. And when I got into the car, I messaged every single one of them, because I felt that there were people in the same kind of industry I was in, and we had similar interests, and I wanted to build relationships with them. Out of those 12 people that I sent a message to, I sent them text messages to say, I'd love to follow up with a call when you have time. I think only 3 of them responded to me. But out of those 3, 2 of them have become my friends for life. We're not even I don't even call them friends. I call them sisters, because we moved away from being friends to be able to, introduce to our families, and they have become part of my network for all of life. That's the point that I'm making. You need to build your network. In your network, build relationships. You can't just have a network and all you know is someone's first name. You don't know their last name. Or you know their last name. You really don't know where they work or what they like. I made it a point of duty that for these people in building these relationships, every time I saw them, I had a gift in my hand. Or maybe I should say most of the time. Let me not say every time. Most of the time I saw them, especially those planned meetings where we'll go out for lunch or something. I always came with a gift. I wanted to leave something with them each time that they will remember me by. If I saw something online that concerned them, whether it was a celebration or something, I'll send them a message acknowledging that I think about them enough to be able to notice what is happening around them and be able to contribute. When I see them doing stuff, I send messages and I say, look, I'm here. If you need my skills, feel free to reach out to me. You must build relationships within your network. Don't just attend networking events and smile this fake plastic smile that we smile through those events and go home. And there is always someone like you in those rooms who is yearning for something deeper the way you are yearning. So build relationships. Number 2, seek collaborations. My first book ever, the first book I published was Sister Power, Discovering the Power of Collaborations. It was after the publishing of that book, that I went for that networking event and I gave them copies of the book, these 13 people, and my card, and they exchanged cards with me. Out of the 3 that I reached out to and responded, I called one and, I think a few days later, she reached out to me, or maybe about a week later, she had read the book. And she said, oh my God, I've never read a book like this before. So we had lunch. After that lunch, she first ordered 250 copies of that book. Then they came back and ordered another 250. Essentially, because of how I sold out my first print of that book really fast, seeking collaboration. What did I offer? The moment I saw she liked the book, I addressed where she was in her ministry and her work in that time. I offered to come, and not just, I didn't want them because they were in a reading year. I said to her, yes, I know that they are reading the book. You're doing a mastermind around the book. What if I came so that they can ask questions? And that was how our relationship took off. So identify opportunities for collaboration and then make the effort. When we get into these environments, and I'm saying this especially for women, we tend to want to wait for people to come to us, and which is what I do actually. But as I've matured, I've realized that sometimes you are the one who needs to make the effort. Reach out. If you have identified someone as someone you need in your network, then you need to reach out to them. When you reach out to them and you begin to have these conversations, and don't keep your conversations on the surface. We tend to do that as well. How do you sit beside someone and the only thing you talk about is the weather and related topics? Make sure you drill deeper. Leave something of what in their impression. Make an impression so that they want to reach back out to you. And I have found that one of the most effective ways to collaborate is to just give skill for skill rather than putting a price to it. When you are quick to give skill for skill, you become a resource that is important in their network enough for them to always remember you. Number 3, assess your resource needs and manage them properly. Remember, I talked about, you have you have cameras, you need this, you need that. Make sure that you are effectively assessing what you need. And assessing what I need always helps me to plan to be able to expand my net worth, my resource bank, without having to find myself in places where automatically I'm depleted. Now, I need to say this. If you have a team, depending on who handles your resource bank, that odds are there that sometimes things would have fallen apart and you do not know. So you need to, from time to time, have a stock list where you go back to ask. You are trying to have a winning year. It would not be a great excuse that somebody dropped the ball on your team, and because of that, you could not win in your year. Remember that why we're looking at these 5 buckets is that the responsibility to win begins with you. So you need to do this and then set systems in place to follow through and to consistently look at these things. You need to prioritize what matters. Sometimes you have invitations to attend 4 different events, 3 events. You need to look at them and say which of these events contributes to the bottom line of my definition of a winning year, and then excuse yourself from the other ones. What we tend to do is we go here, we spend 15 minutes, go to the other one, and 15 minutes is not enough for your name to register, let alone for you to make an impression, a lasting impression on the people. So you need to prioritize and ask yourself what will yield the highest return on investment. And you'll be saying, but is a relationship? Yes, it's a relationship. But if there are 2 people and one is a lot more predisposed to responding to you, wouldn't you rather spend more time with that person? Yes? I've talked about technology before. The other thing I want to highlight is effective communication. I find it laborious in these days of WhatsApps and emails. I find it laborious when someone is, I say someone is a prized or valued member of my network who don't respond to messages on time. I find it very laborious. So what I do is I respond to people on time. I do my best to respond to people on time, because what I am trying to achieve is to make sure that I always have a pool of people that I can always reach into for the things that I want to do. So communicate effectively. If you need someone within your network and you want to lean on them, don't be ambiguous in telling them what you need. I call this the expression of need. A lot of us don't know how to express need. We come and we just dance around what it is that we need. In the end, the person we're trying to communicate to is even more confused after we leave them than when we came to them. So make sure that you communicate clearly and effectively. And then again, as in other things, everything, reflect and adjust. I found at some point in my life that my network plateaued. It plateaued because people were started to grow out of things, but they won't tell you that I've outgrown this particular era. And then you find yourself stringing along, but they have left the level that you are in. Or sometimes it's even the other foot is vice versa. You are the one who has grown and left them behind. So you need to know that there are we cannot be emotional when it comes to expanding our network. If you find that resources are dwindling within your network, you want to expand it and let other people in. What I try to do is formulate cycles. I have level 1 cycle, I have level 2 cycle. Because everybody cannot be at the same depth of relationship with you, but you must always leave the door open so that people can come and those whose seasons are over can leave. So reflect and adjust accordingly, because if you don't, then a day is going to come and you find that what you have is stagnation rather than a network and resource pool that is useful for you. Now, the next thing is you must invest in those relationships. Invest in those relationships. Invest in those relationships. And of course, invest in your resource as well. Give back to your network. I can't say this enough. I think this actually might be the last point that I'm going to give to you. Give back to your network. Give back to your network. Give back to your network. You cannot always just take and not put something in the ground. You cannot always just take and not put something in the ground. Share knowledge. Support their initiatives. Sometimes go and just be with them, even though they don't need you. I can't tell you how many times I will attend some of my key network people. I will attend their events, not because I'm speaking, not anything. I just show up. And I'm not interested in sitting in front and being recognized. I just show up to register my presence and my support in the moment. You can't belong in a network where you put nothing down and then you expect to get something out of it. Well, I'm feeling generous, so I'm going to put one more point down. And that is, you must connect beyond your industry. We always think that why shared interests are fantastic. Sometimes the resource you need is exactly someone who is different from you. Someone who will bring perspective that may even sound rogue to you in the moment, but that is that rogue posture that will take what you're doing and expand it to other places. So diversify your network. Make sure that you have people around you who have different and diverse perspectives so that you can have innovative ideas. I tell you, let me explain something. So I'm in publishing, but I have friends in law. And sometimes just sitting down and listening to their conversation, what I find is that when you are in a network that is diversified, sometimes principles can be cross-pollinated. And because those principles, when they talk about it, in my lawyer friends, they're talking about it from the perspective of law. They don't feel like they need to hold back because I'm there, I'm listening to them, and it doesn't make I'm not in law. But sometimes I step away and I begin to think, if it's happening like this in law, how can I plug it into publishing? And then I find that out of just listening to them do their own thing, I've been able to distill a principle that works for me in my own industry. Do you see it? That's the reason why diversifying your network is important. So connect beyond your industry or your associations, ministry associations or whatever. And when it comes to your inventory, have an inventory, a resource inventory. When it comes to your resources, create a resource inventory. There was a year that I had my team do a proper online cataloging of my books because books are my thing. I have tons and tons of books. And I had them do an online catalog. When I do, for instance, in ministry, in the last 7 years, not every message, say 90% of the messages I've taught are written in a notebook somewhere. At some point, I had to have my team create a catalog for that. Each notepad was numbered, each one, a table of content was built for it, and then they digitized it. So if I needed I needed to maybe do research regarding a certain topic, all I need to do is ask the person in charge, what notebook or what notepad has the topic on XYZ. And when they go into their digital library, they can tell me by the number how many notebooks have that particular subject matter. It narrows the work down for me. It reduces the work for me. I just go and I pick the different notebooks and I begin to look at them to compare and see what it is that I need in the moment. All I have been trying to say to you is that you cannot curate a winning year unless you are intentional. You have to be intentional about your network. And you must be intentional about the resources that you have available. Ask yourself, who do I know and what do I have? Next week when I come, I'm going to be talking to you about the bucket of reputation, how people perceive you, what people say about you can go a long way. Do people even know about you? It goes a long way to curating a winning year. Thank you so much for keeping the faith with me today. Again, we looked at the bucket, your network bucket and your resource bucket. Are they full or are they half empty or half full? What can you do to ensure that they are better so that you have a winning year? Again, thank you for keeping the faith. I'll see you next week with a concluding episode of this series where we'll look at the bucket of your reputation. What do people think about you? What do they know about you? What should they know about you? Are you putting the right stories out there? Or are you just without boundaries and loose cannon all over the place? You cannot win if your reputation does not support winning. I'll see you next week. God bless you. And remember, you can have a boundless, great, limitless year if you just do the work of ensuring that you are the best man for a winning year. God bless you. And I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Nevertheless. For more information and resources, call 080-90563-555 or send an email to bidemi@bidemimark-mordi.com. Don't forget, discovering your purpose helps you live more powerfully.